What's going on, guys and girls? It's your boy Captain Smoke, man, and welcome to episode 4 of the Higher Learning Podcast. Something you see pretty much everywhere, one of the hottest topics around the world at all times, any era, is relationships. Because for whatever reason, I guess it's just in, human nature or, just living creature nature to want to, procreate and, find that mating partner for life. But today, let's talk about relationships and this day and age, and some of the things I think are problematic when it comes to relationships these days. Now, obviously, I'm a man, so this is coming from a male perspective. So for the females out there, feel free to just write everything I say off as mansplaining. But understand, if you do that, that's probably about 85 to 90% of your problem as it is. So without further ado, let's just get straight into it, man. But before we get into it, I just want to show y'all this Higher Learning poster tee, available on higherlearningpod.com. Very comfortable. I'm not sure if the green's going to mess up with the chroma key action, but it may. So sorry if that's looking kind of weird right now on the screen, but I will be also added. By the time you see this, there will be more designs up on the website. I understand that not everybody can wear, the designs with the cannabis leaf and stuff all over it. Oh, that's weird. What's over here? The designs with the leaves and the smoke all over it everywhere. I completely understand that. So I'm putting some designs up for you guys as well. And I appreciate all the support and the inquiries about, buying the merch and everything like that. So higherlearningpod.com, guys, available now. But anyway, let's talk about it. All right. So the first problem I see in today's relationships, and I mean, there's a bunch of them. I'm not really trying to rank them today. I'm just going to, we're just going to have a conversation. But I think people need to, a little slogan, and this is going to be a shirt as well, but be a me before a we. So what does that mean? Basically, you got to understand yourself before you try to combine your life with somebody else's, because really that's what a relationship is, especially if you're, long term and talking about marriage and, starting a family and all of that. Y'all are combining lives together. So it's hard to do that when you have two people that don't even know themselves, or one person who doesn't know themselves and the other person trying to get to know themselves and everything like that. And, when you think about it, a lot of people, they've been in relationships since like middle school. They go from one relationship to the next. Not saying that's the wrong thing to do, but I'm just saying, you try to be so many things for so many different people. It's like, when are you going to give yourself time to get to know you, And I think that just speaks to the fact that a lot of people don't really feel like it's okay to be single. For me personally, I prefer being single. If you watch, the podcast up until this point, I'm a bit of an isolationist. I really pick and choose when I want to be social and, just be around other people. Because I really feel like when I'm by myself, I feel like I'm replenishing energy. And for me, I feel like it takes a lot of energy to be around other people and entertain people. And, especially when it comes to being in a relationship with somebody, especially, a woman who, wants a lot of attention and, love and all of that on a daily basis, 24/7. It's nothing wrong with that, but you just have to understand yourself. So that's me understanding myself, knowing that, hey, I'm a guy that likes to spend 85, 90% of my time alone. So it's like, how long am I going to be able to keep up, catering to a woman who constantly needs attention and stuff like that before I burn out and just, become distant? Like, you have to analyze yourself. You have to know, like, what problems you bring to a relationship. You know what I mean? So I think people really need to get into that before they, really try to jump into a relationship, because it's like, take me, for example. Like I said, I know I need alone time. Like, I need to be alone, like, a lot. And so for me, pairing with a woman who is the exact opposite, who wants to be with you or me all the time and talking to me all the time and texting me all day, there's nothing wrong with a woman wanting that. You know what I'm saying? But you have to understand that that's not how you operate. So that's going to cause friction for one of y'all at some point. Like, either you're going to be stressed out trying to keep up with all of that, or she's going to be upset because she's not getting what she wants. So it's like, those are the type of things that can be prevented before, jumping into a relationship, if you just give yourself time to really understand who you are as a person. And another thing I noticed is, like, people are so in love with the idea of being in a relationship that they just get into any and every relationship they have an opportunity to get in. And I think that's also a big thing that people need to get out of. I'm not saying you shouldn't, like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to want to have somebody when you're single, but you have to stop basing your decisions on that. Like, I feel like a lot of people shoot the arrow and then paint the target around it. And so instead of hitting an actual bullseye with, your life partner or whatever, you're, shooting the arrow at a blank wall and then painting the arrow around it to make yourself and others think that you hit the bullseye, if that makes sense to you. And so, like I said, that just goes back into understanding yourself and then hopefully going after a person that understands themselves. And so y'all can be honest with each other and realize, okay, this is what I need out of a relationship. This is what I want out of a relationship. This is what I can tolerate. This is what I can't tolerate. Just put everything on the table. And I feel like things will go a lot smoother because, we'll get into this a little bit later, but a lot of people just try to, and they don't even necessarily try to do it consciously, but a lot of people trick themselves and then other people into believing they're somebody they're really not, trying to make the other person happy. And it's like, how long can it becomes a game of like, how long can you keep that up? So, yeah, be a me before a we, guys. That's very important. Another thing, kind of, piggybacking off that point is properly assessing your value. We hear a lot about knowing your worth, right? You got to know your worth, know what you're worth, and don't just give yourself to everybody. And I firmly believe that. But at the same time, I think it's a big deal for you to really properly assess your value. Like, for example, I just gave you one example of something I've evaluated about myself that I realized, hey, this is not going to be a great thing for a lot of women. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not looking at myself like, oh, I'm just this perfect God's gift to, any woman who has me type deal. I'm realizing, I'm upfront and I understand that I have my shortcomings as well that, would be problematic for certain women to deal with. So don't just assume yourself to be perfect or try to give off this I'm a perfect person image on social media or whatever, in the attempts to, roping somebody into a relationship or whatever. Just really understand your strengths and weaknesses, because really your real strengths are really what's going to, propel you in life and your relationship. So really understand those. You got to really understand where you're strong at and where you're weak at. And I think when people do that, that's when partnerships, like real live partnerships, can come about, because it's like, okay, I'm strong at this, but I'm weak at this. But here's a woman who's strong at what I'm weak at and weak at what I'm strong at. So we can help each other be better people. And, in the areas I slack off in, she can pick up in, and vice versa. To me, that's the ideal situation, regardless of what it looks like. And obviously I'm using examples of, a male and female relationship because that's, my life. But, somebody else watching, I don't want you to think that if you, have an alternative, relationship or alternative preference or whatever, however you want to say it, that these things can't apply to you. I'm just speaking from my perspective. So I think these things work out. And even if I'm saying like men do this and women do that, I'm not generalizing or trying to generalize. Like people, you can find people of both sexes that fit into, all categories. So I don't, once again, I'm just clarifying that I'm not trying to generalize anything. I'm just kind of speaking from my point of view. And really these things can apply to anybody. Okay, so another example, or one example of properly assessing your value, and this is no disrespect, but let's look at Colin Kaepernick, for example. Now, obviously, we're not evaluating his relationship situation or anything like that, but we all really publicly seen the whole relationship with the NFL and football in general be on the public display. So let's talk about that. So Colin Kaepernick and, all of the supporters out there pretty much feel like he's been blackballed from the NFL. And there was, obviously we all know that there was a lawsuit about collusion, basically all 32 teams colluding to keep him out of the NFL. And he obviously settled out of court on that. So that was never proven, but he settled out of court on that. And the whole time he was pursuing a job in the NFL. Okay, so first of all, let's look at the facts, right? Before the protest ever kicked off, Colin Kaepernick was benched on his team. He played for the 49ers, and obviously I'm a Raiders fan, so I have no love for the 49ers. So I obviously I respected Kaepernick's game because I've always been a fan of the mobile quarterback that with a rocket arm like Michael Vick. Like that's always been my favorite type of quarterback. But him being a Niner, I couldn't really just be a fan like that because I'm Raider. I'm diehard Raider. I was born in Raider gear, so I'm not supporting no Niner. Like it just is what it is. But anyway, Colin Kaepernick, I really appreciated his stance that he took, for the black man being killed by police officers, or just unarmed civilians in general being killed by police officers. And I felt bad for him because I felt like the narrative was completely taken out of control and put onto the national anthem. And that, just caused a whole nother thing that he wasn't really even, that's not really even his point. So that's where I was frustrated with it. But now looking at it, he still wants to play in the NFL, which I think, why wouldn't he? He's dedicated his whole life to football. But you have to look at, before we start saying he's blackballed and this and that, we have to look at the facts. Like, number one, he was benched before the protest, meaning that his team demoted him to backup quarterback before that. So when you think about him, in this whole media firestorm, even though he was in the right for what he was saying, with the protest, you have to understand it's like, okay, for an NFL team, who's going to sign a backup quarterback with all this drama surrounding him, right? Like your backup quarterback shouldn't be ever in the news ever. Like your backup quarterback, most people, you really wouldn't even want casual people to know who your backup is, because then that's how you get into quarterback controversies. Because think about it. So a team signs Kaepernick. They have all of this drama, media drama and, both sides of the equation, this, that, and the third. From a backup quarterback, though. So you're bringing a lot of stuff into your locker room for a guy that's hopefully never going to play. You see what I'm saying? So I think that, if Cap and his team did a better job of managing all the negatives or just looking at things for what they are, like they have to understand, okay, well, this is what I'm bringing to an NFL team as a backup quarterback, and realize how unattractive that is to the team. And maybe then you could have a different point of view. It's like they're not just keeping you out because you're, you this or that. You're bringing a lot of extra baggage with you that, we've never seen that from a backup quarterback before. And then recently, there's a new football league in America called the XFL. And obviously the XFL reached out to Colin Kaepernick to, have him be on a team or whatever. And they say he wanted an exorbitant amount of money. Now, we don't know what that figure is, but it's obviously a figure that a new league couldn't support. And I mean, I understand that. I understand both sides of that. It's like Colin Kaepernick feels like he offers a certain skill set and he needs, a certain amount of money to provide that skill set for a team. And then you have the XFL, another league, who just simply doesn't have the resources to properly compensate him to the level that he would like to be compensated at. So it's a no deal. So, I'm not saying because I use this as an example, I'm not saying that you should lower your standards, but I do think you have to take into account the other party involved. And that goes back to, what I was saying earlier, like, don't be so pressed to be in a relationship that you take less than what you deserve. But at the same time, don't value yourself. And I'm not saying Kaepernick overvalued himself at all. I'm saying, he stood firm in what he believed in, and, he valued himself at this number and nobody else did. So he just he's single. He doesn't, he doesn't have a dancing partner that's willing to give him that. And so I see that from a lot of people out there on social media, they're, especially around Valentine's Day. There was a lot of women, really, because women, let's be honest, Valentine's Day is about women anyway. It's not about men. So all the complaining you saw on social media was from women about how they, they're single and they didn't get this or they didn't get that. And, oh, I wish somebody loved me and I'm this and I'm that. I don't understand why, people don't feel this way about me and all of that. And, the thing is, it's like, every woman wants like that movie type relationship where, you walk in and there's flower petals and candles and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but they also want, the rich guy who all the other girls want, who only wants them and, all that kind of stuff. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just like, if I'm that guy, what makes me want you? Like, what makes me pick you out of the other sea of women? And the same goes for men, like men who, you know, have a little, something going on, and it's like, okay, I feel like I need to be dating actresses and models and the top Instagram models in the world. But it's like, okay, if you're that Instagram model who can have any man on the planet she wants, like, what makes her want you? You see what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by properly assessing your value. Just have a little bit of humility and really just understand what you offer, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then I think that's how you find happiness. Because even if you do land one of these people that are kind of quote unquote out of your league, it's like, you have to make them happy too at the end of the day. So one of the biggest problems I see with modern relationships is normally they are one-sided. Like I just said, you have one person that expects this from the other person. You have one partner in the relationship expects a lot more from the other party than what they're giving to that other party. And that just leads to unhappiness and resentment and just negative energy in the relationship altogether. And honestly, for one thing I want to say also is that, and this goes back to my first point of being a me before a we, you have to have your own code. Like, you have to have your own morals and your own standards as far as what you're going to bring, or what you're going to, like, how you're going to behave in a relationship. Like, for example, there's this narrative that all men cheat and all men do this. Like, I've never cheated on anybody in my life, just for the simple fact that that's not what I would want from my partner. Like, I wouldn't want my partner to be out cheating on me, so I'm not going to be out cheating on her. Not saying that, the other hasn't happened, but I'm just saying, regardless of what the other person is doing, I'm operating how I want to be treated, as far as that. Because it's not about the other person. It's about my code. You see what I'm saying? So that goes into just properly assessing your value and everything like that. And another thing, I don't see this as much with men, but I do see a lot of, I take that back. I don't, I don't want to get into that, but, stop trying to force people to love you. Let me just say that, because I saw a tweet yesterday and I was going to post it here, but it was deleted. I should have screenshotted it when I had the chance, but I didn't. But there was a tweet from, I'm guessing it was a trans woman. I'm guessing, but it says, she said, what reason for not dating a trans person isn't rooted in transphobia? So basically what she was saying is, if you don't want to date a trans person, you're transphobic. And to me, that was one of the dumbest things I've ever read. And that's no disrespect to the trans community or the LGBTQ plus community or whatever. But to me, that's just, trying to force people or guilt people into, dating you. I mean, I doubt that would work, but I'm just saying, like, why would you force, like, there's plenty of people, there's plenty of trans people, there's plenty of people that date trans people, that love trans people, that are married to trans people. So it's like, why would you say anybody not dating a trans person is transphobic? Like, that's, the height of narcissism, in my opinion. I saw another tweet that said we need to normalize dating sex workers. Why? For what? Like, anybody that's comfortable with dating a sex worker would probably be dating a sex worker. Other than that, like, why, why would you even say something like that? Like, everybody needs to relax and let everybody have their own preferences. I've always operated from the standpoint of, like, number one, if I'm not interested in being with you, I don't care what you're doing, first of all. And if I'm not with you, actually, it's none of my business. Like, I could want to be with you, and from that point, it would be my job to figure out, okay, are you available? Are you in a relationship? This, that, and the third. But it's just like, other than that, why would I care what anybody else does? So, like, I don't have an opinion on, anybody else's lifestyle other than mine and whoever I'm trying to be with, which at the moment is nobody. So I don't really care what anybody's doing. You see what I'm saying? But I feel like people really try to, they try to guilt people into, like, for example, another example of this is, I have a couple friends. I have quite a few friends actually who are involved in, like, interracial relationships, and them being men, they get a lot of backlash from black women about their interracial relationship. But my whole thing about that is this: like, if you're not trying to date this dude anyway, like, what does it matter to you? Like, even if you were trying to date him, like, what's wrong with him picking who he wants to be with? Like, what? You already have 2 kids, first of all, so you should be, you should try to work that out over there. You know what I mean? Like, worry about the business that pays you type stuff, because trying to guilt trip people into, loving you or whatever is not going to work. There's somebody out there that wants you, probably right now. Especially, like, I feel like most women have people in their DMs or whatever. And, I'm not saying you have to respond or give play to everybody that comes your way, but it's just like, how about looking through the people that are interested in you instead of trying to guilt trip or like badmouth people who aren't, because think about it from a woman's perspective. Like the woman who's walking down the street and gets catcalled and, is not interested in the dude, and they call her all kind of call her all out her name and stuff. Like, that's goofy. That's stupid. Like, nobody would respect that, right? Like, we could all agree that that's wrong. I mean, obviously, except for the dudes that still do that kind of stuff, or who do that stuff, or who've done that stuff. They might disagree with that. But to me, it's the same thing when you flip it on the other end. It's like you're trying to shame a man for not being interested in you. Why? Just live your life, get more in tune with yourself. And when that person comes around who's interested in you for who you are, and, y'all click, it is what it is. But yeah, because imagine those people now who are dating somebody just to, kind of go with this, or satisfy the status quo. Think about there was a book when I was a kid called like the Down Low Brothers or whatever. I don't know if y'all remember that one or not, but basically, I mean, obviously I didn't read it. It was just a big story on the news or whatever, and then the black community in general. But obviously it was about and I mean, don't get me wrong, this still goes on to this day. I think they call them beards now. Like gay men, for example, they call them beards. The women who is it beards or mustache? I think it's beards though, because beards from the Aaron Hernandez documentary. That's the first time I heard that. Basically, it was a football player who was explaining how a lot of gay men have women or even wives and with children and everything to hide who they really actually are. And I mean, it would just be great if everybody was just themselves and just honest. So I'm saying, when you're trying to guilt people into, living their life a certain way, you get a lot of fake love. You get a lot of people, you get beards, you get people dating people just to meet the status quo, So, let's move on. So for me, I've always felt like an old head, like an old person, just in the way I look at relationships, because I feel like in this day and age, there's been a death of getting to know somebody. Like, I feel like back in the day, even growing up before like cell phones and social media, you had more of a chance to actually get to know somebody. And maybe that's just because, you think in like school, you're seeing people every day and, y'all are around each other all the time, and maybe years for up into the point where y'all start talking or whatever like that. Or, you date somebody you knew a long time ago. Y'all have known each other for a long time and y'all start dating later down the line. But I'm talking about in this day and age where you meet somebody most of the time. Well, I can't say most of the time because I don't really know the percentages like that, but I'm assuming most of the time these connections are made over social media now, not in person or anything like that. So first of all, you're attracted to like an ego, because that's what people promote on social media. They're going to promote their successes. They're not really going to promote their failures like that. They're going to show you what they want you to see. And so that's who you're, if you're meeting off social media, that's who you're thinking you're getting. Especially like we all know about the filters on Instagram, for example, that can totally change the look of a woman, or Snapchat or whatever it is with the filters. I've never really used a filter like that. So, I don't know which app has the best filters, but there are certain apps that can really change the total way you look, and women have mastered the art of this. So for the people, for example, setting up dates off of social media, Instagram, whatever, how many times do you think they've arrived at the place and, the person looks totally different, the girl looks totally different, or, maybe she looks similar, but, after a few months of dating and you see what she really looks like without all the, the costume on, you're kind of feeling bamboozled. Now that hasn't happened to me personally, because number one, I've never done the whole internet dating thing. I've always met people in real life and, went from there. But a lot of, let's be honest, a lot of women are catfish, and dudes too. Honestly, a lot of people are catfishing people in person these days with all of these, you know, uh, costumes. Like I said, even now I'm starting to see men get fake beards. Like if you look at my beard, one side of it doesn't grow as fast as the other, so it's always looking kind of, patchy on one side, and this side grows in how it's supposed to. But that doesn't mean I feel like I need to go get the little paint and paint the rest of it in. It's just, this is who I am, like hopefully it grows in one day, but I'm not gonna force it and put the whole fake beard on and then trick some girl into thinking, because think about that. Like for me, I'm a hair guy. I really love a woman who can wear her real hair and not, take it off and it be sitting on a table or a nightstand somewhere. That's just me. And that doesn't mean I have a problem with anybody doing that, because I understand why they do it. Like, obviously, we've all heard that, oh, it's a protective style and all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying my personal preference is for your hair to literally grow out of your scalp, because, I've grown my own hair, so I don't see why you can't grow yours. Obviously, there's other problems that, prevent that from happening. Age, just the way, especially in the black community, the way that our women were brought up to do their hair, with all the perms and all the stuff that's really bad for the hair, that we start seeing the effects 10, 15, 20 years later down the line. So I get it. It's a lot of that. But I just feel like a lot of younger ladies who, have the hair to take care of now, they're damaging it by, like we've all seen, because we call it a protective style, but we've all seen those videos on Twitter or Facebook of, women pulling off their, I don't know if it's a sew-in or whatever with the like fake skin or whatever, and it's like ripping hair out with it. You know what I'm saying? So it's no way you can tell me that's a protective style. But that's just, my personal preference. So I look for people who go out into the world just being themselves for whatever it is, like even if it's a fade, like even if it's like a low fade cut, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I respect you coming out in your natural form, and because I feel like I'm now talking to a real person versus, whoever it is you're trying to dress up to be. You know what I mean? So the whole point of this is, in this day and age, you don't really get to know a real person until it's too late. And the reason I think that is because things move way too fast these days. For example, there's what's called a talking stage, where you're talking to somebody. Like, let's say I meet a young lady, we exchange numbers, and we're talking, right? Talking. But see, the problem with talking is she could easily be talking to 5, 6, 7 dudes, going on dates, doing whatever with all of them. And that's normal in today's society. So it's like, for me, that's a no-go. I don't want any parts of that, right? So you damn near have to be in a committed relationship just to exclusively get to know somebody these days. And even then, it's like, not everybody's an exclusive person. Like I said, for me, that's a code that I have with myself. It has nothing to do with the other person. That's just how I move. But everybody don't move like that. So, you deal with a lot of crap, when you put yourself out there and you're trying to date or get to know somebody like that. And once again, like, once you do start dating and being in a relationship with somebody, we all go through what's called the honeymoon phase, where you like the person. Basically, to sum it up, you actually like the person. You actually want to be around them. You actually can't wait to talk to them. You actually are happy, when they, want to see you, or this, that, and the third. Whereas, the whole time y'all are really getting to know each other. Y'all are in that honeymoon phase where you're kind of not even if you see them, you're ignoring little red flags, and you're just so convinced that this is the right thing to be doing or whatever. But the reality is, as that goes on, you're getting to know the person, and then eventually it just reaches a spot where you're like, okay, well, I know this isn't the person that I'm trying to be with for the rest of my life. And, it just kind of deteriorates from there. And like I said, I think that's all due to the fact that, you really can't exclusively get to know somebody these days unless, if it's somebody like me, I'm, for one, like I said, I like to be alone so much that I'm never going to talk to more than one person at a time, because that one person is already a little bit too much for me. out the gate. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I never really understood cheating like that. Cause it's like, just being with this one girl is way more than enough for me. So it's like you juggling 2 or 3. Like, how do you have time to, relax and recuperate? But once again, not everybody is an isolationist like me, and not everybody, like, the same way I thrive on alone time, a lot of other people thrive on being around other people. So it's like, if you're always around people, I could see that being easy for you. But yeah, that's a no-go for me. Yeah. So basically, to sum it all up, in this day and age, you damn near have to be engaged to somebody or in a relationship to, expect exclusivity. And, the whole time you're just trying to get to know the person. So sad state of affairs, but it is what it is. Stay single. That's my advice, honestly. So another problem we have in modern relationships, I believe, is just the outdated gender roles. So if you look at the gender roles from like the 50s, where, okay, the man goes out and works all day, the woman stays home and, handles the household, cleans everything, gets the kids ready for school, picks them up from school. Like, you know what I'm saying? Running the entire household, cooking, all of that. Like, that's in the 50s, where you could support a full family on one, like, medium income. It's not even like you had to really be making money, like an extreme amount of money. You could go work in the local factory and put your, and support your whole family, pay off your house, because talking to my grandparents, it's like, okay, well, y'all's house was like 10 grand, 30 grand at the most. Houses these days are, 100 times that, or, 300,000, 200,000, you know what I mean? So it's not really realistic to just expect every single man to just have the income to support, a stay-at-home wife and a couple kids in the white picket fence home these days. That's just not reality. But it's like, that's what, women want. And so, and it's not unfair of them to want that, because that's, that's how it's presented. Like, okay, well, in the 50s, women didn't have to go to work, or, well, actually, let me say before the 50s, because, 1942, when the United States got involved in World War II, that's when the women took over the workforce in America, because all the men were over either in Germany trying to push back the Nazis, or, in the Pacific fighting the Japanese. So there were very few men to speak of in America. So women ruled the workforce. So that's, where the whole female empowerment movement came from. But before that, it was really just, women, first of all, there were no discrimination laws preventing people from not hiring you because you're a woman. There was no laws saying that that a company would have to pay you the same amount as they had a man in order, just because you're a woman, I can pay you less, basically, back in those days. So it's like you damn near had to have a man to get paid what the job was worth to support you. You see what I'm saying? So with female empowerment, that's no longer the case. You make the same amount of money as any man. So it's like, why are we still holding on to this gender role that the man has to provide all the money or whatever? And I know not everybody's like that. Like a large majority of women are, independent. They have their own careers. They don't need a man to support them for anything. But even though that's the case, society, I guess you could say, still looks at it as, oh, the man should pay. Like, for example, when we go out to eat, who's getting handed the bill? Now, most of the time as a server, to be honest, because I, see the dynamic of, more women paying for meals now, I put it in the middle and let them do their thing. But, just expectations, people look a certain way if a woman's paying, or like if it, if it's obviously a date, they expect the man to pay. And for men, it's just like, it's not really acceptable for us to express how we feel about certain things. For example, like I said in the intro, a lot of women write off whatever men say as mansplaining. They don't want to hear a man's point of view on things because it doesn't matter. And I think that's a huge problem with relationships. It's like women really don't even get to know their men. Like, I don't really feel like I've dated somebody that really, really just knew me on the inside and out, like the way they expected me to know them. Like, women generally expect you to know their favorite foods, their favorite drinks, their, favorite places to go, their favorite flowers, their favorite colors, but they couldn't tell you shit about you, really, like beyond, the surface level basic stuff they see every day. You know what I mean? And I think that's part of the ancient male gender roles, that men are just supposed to go to work and sit down on the recliner, drink a beer, and shut up. You know what I mean? And like be, just internalize all your anger and displeasure with your life until you die. Basically, that's how it just seems out there. Whereas women, they want a mix of modern female empowerment combined with chivalry, which, you hear women say all the time, oh, chivalry is dead. But when you really look at what chivalry was, that's probably a good thing, because the chivalrous code was for knights and nobles. So it's like, the local whore down the street over here at the tavern, she's not getting, nobody's putting their jacket on the puddle so she could walk across it. We're talking about princesses and, duchesses and, ladies of the houses and all of that. You get what I'm saying? And these are people that are expected to be virgins until they're married off. So all of y'all that, for example, the lady with 3 kids by 3 different dudes talking about chivalry is dead. Like, do you think even back in those days you would be, greeted with chivalry? No, you wouldn't. You'd be considered a harlot, honestly. So it's like, I think people really need to reevaluate that kind of thing. It's like, it's almost like you only want equality when it's beneficial for you a lot of the times. And that's just how it comes off as men, or I can only speak for myself, but that's just how I see it. It's like, oh, equality, like there's nothing positive, like there's nothing good that a man can do that a woman can't do. But when it comes to like taking out the trash or, doing yard work or physical labor, oh, that's when men are men now. Men are men again when it's time to do that. Or, I can't even say like a lot of example is like when it's time to go to combat and fight in wars. I was in Iraq. There was a lot of female Marines out there ready to go, put that lead out there on ISIS. So I'm not even gonna say that. Like, it was a lot of women out there ready to go die, for what it was they were doing out there. But I'm just talking about your modern day Instagram girl who's complaining on social media about how chivalry is dead and, men are, this, that, and the third, and male privilege this, male privilege that, and whatever. And I'm not saying male privilege doesn't exist, but we could sit here and talk about female privilege all day. And in fact, let's get into it. Female privilege looks like you feeling like your emotions are more important in a relationship than anything else. Like, how many women are in relationships right now where they feel like if they're having a bad day, their man needs to have a bad day. Or if he can't fix your bad day that you're having, then he, shouldn't be happy. He shouldn't be smiling. He shouldn't be able to enjoy himself without you. Hey, like I said, look at Valentine's Day, look at Mother's Day, look at the expectations of what a woman expects to receive for Valentine's Day versus if the man, I don't even know a man who expects anything other than like sex on Valentine's Day, to be honest with you. I mean, not saying that it does, like women don't get their men gifts, but it's not the same pressure. Like, men are under pressure to, gift their girl something that they can post on social media so everybody can feel like you love her or whatever. And I mean, that's cool or whatever, but I think people just take the wrong, people read too much into the wrong things. I honestly feel like women have trained men to lie to them. And I'm not the type, because obviously, if you watch episode 1, my dad died at 12. So I was raised by women my whole life, basically. So it's just like, I know the inside, like I listen to women. I understand the insides and outs as much as a man could about how like women think, how they want to be treated, and they're not perfect. Like, y'all are not perfect creatures. And a lot of y'all will admit that. But, I've sit here and watched women I love, in my family go through relationships with men who, were obviously like not right. And, something was obviously off, but that was to me from my eyes, but they didn't see it. You see what I'm saying? And, like I said, it's like women have trained men to lie to them as far as what you want to hear. The perfect example: do I look fat in this dress? Does this dress make me look fat? Like, what man's going to say yes to that? Because just from, if you know anything about anything, that there's only one right answer, and that's a no. You got to tell her no. Even if she looks horrible and fat in the dress, you shouldn't tell her that she does, because that's going to hurt her little feelings. And as a man, you're supposed to tiptoe on eggshells around them. Whereas if I'm an honest person to a fault, like lying just doesn't sit well with me for the simple fact that it's like, now, like, why can't we just be honest? Like, I thought, that's what we're about. But even then it's like, I wouldn't feel right telling, you know what I'm saying? It's like you wouldn't want to, crush a girl you're in a relationship with. You wouldn't want her to feel that way. So you're not going to tell her, you going to find a way to maybe be like, I don't really, I don't know. But basically, y'all get what I'm saying. It's like, the things that you can and can't say. And it's like, whereas females can say whatever they want to say to their dude and it not be an issue. And, I think that just says a lot about the female ego. The female ego is what you see on Instagram. That's that's where you look at a girl and you see all these pictures of her looking great, makeup did, hair great. And then that's when you see her, a year down the line in y'all's relationship looking, like you never imagined she would look. And, you can't really say nothing about that. You just got to, back to those old male gender roles, just sit there and take it. You know what I'm saying? Until, something happens, I guess. I think if women just kind of were open to men, open to listening to men more and opening to men being more honest with them, that they would, find more meaningful relationships versus just, guys that's going to tell you what you want to hear. Because like I said, I'm the guy that's not going to lie, not going to cheat. I'm not going to call you out your name, but I can't say that's most guys, because that's the reality is it's not. Like, there's a lot of guys that's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. They're going to get what they want and then they're going to do them. Like, that's the reality. If you're watching this, you probably have had, situations like that where, it was this perfect guy and he was this and that. And then, he was telling you all the right things. And then you just found out none of it was true. And he was over here doing his own thing and living a totally different life. And now you're destroyed and hurt and everything like that. But normally when something's too good to be true, it is. Normally, I'm not saying that there's not, Prince Charmings walking around ready to, sweep you off your feet or whatever, but it is what it is. There's a lot of predators out there as well that's preying on women who want to be lied to. You know what I mean? That want to hear, you're the most beautiful woman in the world. And, all that romantic movie shit that y'all like to hear. Because the reality is we all know y'all love The Notebook, right? So if I want to finesse, I could just, give you some lines out of The Notebook and give you the chocolates and candies and flowers and not even really be feeling that strong about you, especially if my money's up. Like, if I'm a rich dude, I can do all these things. Because, see, that's another thing. Like, we talk about love languages and stuff like that. There's a whole love language for gifts, basically, people who feel loved when they receive gifts. So if I'm an NBA player and I have millions of dollars and I'm, playing 82 games a season, traveling to, 30, 40 different cities or whatever it is, you don't think I have the money to buy multiple women gifts and make them feel loved, you know what I'm saying, without any effort and it meaning nothing to me because I'm a millionaire? Like, versus the guy that, is only interested in you and, and is dealing with you and catering to you, but he might not have that same amount of money to always just shower you in these gifts, but you think he loves you less. But he's the one that's trying to be real with you and trying to be true with you. Meanwhile, you're more interested in the guy that, can buy you a bag here and there, but he's buying 5 and 6 and 7 other women bags in other cities and flying them different, and you don't, But see, the thing is, if you're cool with that, then it's not a problem. If that's what you want, that's not a problem. If you're, but I'm just speaking for the women who, because there's women out there right now that are being ran game, they having game run on them, they getting a bag here, some heels there, and they thinking they done found the love of their life. Really, it's just a guy like using you and paying you in bags and cash to do what they want. And it's like, if y'all have that kind of relationship and that's the agreement, then that's the agreement. There's nothing wrong with that. But just, I just feel bad for the people who feel like, this is the love of my life. And this dude don't really care about you at all. He just, hitting it and, buying you bags. And I mean, at the end of the day, you still getting something out of it, I guess. But if you're not okay with it, then if you're not okay with him, doing that for 7, 8 other people, then it's like, are you really winning in life? All right. So I think a lot of this just comes from the difference in how we're taught as boys and girls, like the differences. Like, I talked as far as emotional, and back in episode 1, I talked about how, growing up as a little boy, you fall off your bike and scrape your knee, you better suck that shit up, walk it off. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no crying around here like that. We don't do none of that. So it's like, that's how you go through life, dealing with pain. You internalize it and, don't show it on the outside, because weakness, you can't show weakness. So that's what led to me, look, my dad on the ground dying next to me. I still have this same demeanor. Like, damn, that's crazy. It is what it is. So it's just like, from the standpoint of a relationship, when you have a girl freaking out about something stupid, it's just like, yeah, I'm going to have the same demeanor as well. I'm not going to boo-hoo and cry like you, but I understand that because we were taught differently. Like, as a little girl, when you were growing up and you scraped your knee, oh yeah, cry for 30, 40 minutes and just let it all out. And, oh, poor baby. And, kisses on the knee and all of that crap. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not necessarily crap, but I'm just saying that's how y'all were raised, y'all. So that put it in your mind that y'all's emotions are more important than men's. Like, I've even had a girl tell me I don't have emotions, even though I was going through like an emotional crisis on the inside, just trying to, because the summer is always really hard for me because that's where everything happens. So, I go through a lot of stuff in the summer, but it's like, it's not anybody's fault. So I'm not trying to take it out on other people. I'm not trying to, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be a terrible person to be around because it's not anybody's fault. So I do mostly stay to myself when I'm hurting and I'm feeling bad because I don't want to, make other people feel that way or, whatever. But it's just like a lot of women that I've encountered feel like their emotions are somebody else's problem. Like, especially if you're in a relationship, it's like a woman could wake up in a bad mood and that's your fault somehow. You got to fix that somehow. And it's like, I think that's what we got to get away from. We got to like kind of we have to find a middle ground in between the emotional extremes of men and women and kind of just meet in the middle. Men shouldn't internalize everything as much and women shouldn't freak out over everything as much. That's what I'm saying. Find that middle ground. And I think emotionally we'll be a lot better in relationships. Also, speaking on things we were taught growing up, I've been seeing a lot of talk, especially on Facebook, because, Facebook is where you actually have people, whereas Twitter is just kind of, a wild, wild west free for all. But so a lot of people on my Facebook have been talking about marriage, and it's actually mostly, if not 100% women who are, talking about, oh, well, I don't understand why men don't want to get married no more. And, oh, back in the 40s and 50s, the women had it good because the men were this and that and blah, blah, blah. Look, here's the thing. Like I was saying earlier, you got to really look at what's in it for the other party. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you as a woman are wondering why, your man hasn't married you yet or whatever, try thinking about it from his angle, like what's in it for marrying you. And then remember what I said earlier, properly assess your value. Like, think about it from his perspective. Like, what is marrying you going to do for me as far as, what is marrying you going to do for me as far as just, life? Like, how is that going to improve my life? Like, how is that going to improve this relationship? Because there's already things I don't like about you. You know what I'm saying? So are you telling me those things are going to just disappear if I marry you? Because they're not. Let's be real. If you talk to most men like who've been married for a long time, they'll tell you things go actually downhill once you're married for men, because it's like, that's the end goal. Like, women have been planning their wedding since little girls, right? So I understand why women want to get married more so than men, because y'all are looking at it for what, it is for y'all. For y'all, it's this big day that's all about you, where you get to, look the prettiest you've ever looked in the most expensive dress you'll probably ever wear with the most makeup you'll probably put on, the hair did, and this whole situation's all about you and what you want and how you've envisioned it since you were a little girl. Men have none of that. You see what I'm saying? Like, so we don't even look at it the same way. We're looking at it from the sense of, okay, I'm going to have to deal with you until I die, basically, or else give you half of whatever I own. Like, for men, it's really not, because like women could still go out and cheat if you marry her. So it's just like, then that's more struggle to divorce her versus just leaving. And so I think that's really what it is, because I feel like if a man knows he wants to be with you for the rest of his life, then, it is what it is. I don't really see the benefit of getting married, to be honest with you. Like, I just feel like that's another status quo thing as far as, being able to say you're married as a woman, for example. Like, for a man, it's just like whatever. But I'm sure, like, I say that, right? But I could meet my soulmate tomorrow and have a totally different view on that. And so that's what I mean. Like, you really have to, first of all, evaluate what it is, the other party is going to gain from being with you for the rest of their lives, and do it with humility though. Don't just like overvalue yourself. Realize the good and the bad, and where the problems might come from on your end. Like, don't look at yourself as this perfect entity in the relationship. I can't stress that part enough. And basically all I'm saying is, like, my ideal relationship is a partnership. It's like, I can count on you for certain things. You can count on me for the things, like I said earlier, your strengths are my weaknesses and vice versa. And I can count on you. And, we have the same values. We can raise children together. We can, enjoy being around each other, that kind of just simple stuff. And partnership is such an important word, because that just tells you that both sides are contributing and both sides are benefiting as well. Because I feel like a lot of relationships, and I know I said this earlier, but a lot of relationships, they're one-sided, and the side that's like getting the most out of it, they generally don't see that. They just assume the other person is happy with them because they haven't left yet or whatever. And generally that's not the case. Like, the other person could be giving you a chance to try to convince them that you can make them happy or whatever. And so your question to that might be like, okay, well, if that's the situation, why doesn't the person that's feeling that way leave? And honestly, it's just, we've all been in a situation, whether it's a job, whether it's a living arrangement, whether it's a relationship or a friendship or a relationship with family, where you're just comfortable. Like, it's not the best, it's not ideal, but you're comfortable, and you're, kind of apprehensive about going off and doing something else or starting all the way over from scratch. And so you stay, and shit just gets progressively worse. And then, until you force your way out, basically, or it forces an end or whatever. And, it is what it is. But, really, guys and girls, I don't want to sound like I'm a single guy that loves to be single, and it's not because I like messing with a lot of people. I just like to be by myself. I'm a really big gamer also, so there might be days where that's all I want to do. And so if I have a girl who needs attention and shit like that, then that gets in the way of that. I'm really big on virtual reality. Actually, I've been recording. I probably recorded about 10, 15 hours of actual virtual reality gameplay for you guys. So I'm going to be editing that and putting that up pretty soon. So you can kind of step into my world as far as like what things that I really love to do. Virtual reality gaming is right up there because, as a kid, I always dreamed about going inside my video games and just being transported to these different worlds. And with virtual reality, that's a reality now. You know what I mean? Like, I literally go, whether it's, in my flight simulator where I'm flying, around the world in these, like, inside the aircraft, or, like Onward VR where I'm a military operator, got my weapons, and it's just, I can turn my space into so many different things because of this tool. And I just really, my thing is, going back to episode 1 is like, life, I know, the next minute's never promised, let alone the next day, the next year. So it's just like, I've been there, done that as far as relationships. I don't have any kids. I'm grateful for that. So there's so much other stuff I want to do with my life. So many places I want to see, so many things I want to do, so much food I want to eat. You know what I mean? Like, that I feel like if I live long enough to, find a soulmate and be in a relationship, forever or whatever, then cool. But I'm not pressed to do that. And I feel like if a lot of people took that approach in life, they'd really, find that right one. It's like baseball. If you've ever played baseball or softball, you don't swing at every pitch. You watch the pitch coming in, keep your eye on the ball, and you look at what kind of pitch it is. If it's a fastball, straight ball, meatball, the ones that's easy to hit, you know what I'm saying? Like curve ball, you got to put your eye on that. Don't just swing at everything. And I feel like people are out here swinging for the fences at everything, when it's okay to take a couple, watch a couple pitches come in and pass you by. So when you see that right one, you can knock it out the park. Hopefully that analogy was decent to where y'all could understand what I was trying to say. I don't really know if I, when I use analogies like that, I don't really know if they're coming across with the intention that I have behind them, but hopefully they are, guys. So with that, that's going to end episode 4 of Higher Learning. I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate y'all, supporting the Facebook page and Reddit page and, higherlearningpod.com. Also, again, you can get this merch on higherlearningpod.com/shop. We have this and a lot more, and I'm going to be adding, by the time you see this, there'll be leaf-free designs up there. I already have, things without the cannabis leaf and smoke on them. For example, this bucket hat. I also have a dad hat up. That says control what you can control, but I'm coming out with the shirts without the leaves and smoke as well. So, people that want to support the podcast can have shirts they can wear in a lot more places. Cause I understand you don't want to be hassled and looked at and judged, cause there is still a stigma about the cannabis out there. But as far as the relationship tip, guys, one more thing, even if you're in a relationship right now, I would say that it's not too late to, start getting to know your partner on a better level and start looking at them as a partner versus an ATM or a sex machine or something like that. It's okay to really sit down and have real conversations and really get to know your partner and why they think the way they think and why they feel the way they feel. And a lot of that is due to things that they've been through in their life. And so the more you understand that, the more you can understand them and love them better and learn their love language and all of that crap, but for me, wanting, it starts with understanding yourself, right? I understand that I'm a guy that out of 24 hours of the day, I probably need at least 12 of them alone. Maybe not every day, but like I would, I need my alone time. So I understand that being in a relationship right now is not really a realistic situation for me, and definitely not for a woman who is going to want me, going to want to be on my mind all the time and want me to have, she wants to have my full, complete attention, and that's not something that I'm really trying to give right now. So like I said, you got to understand yourself. That way you're not, messing up other people out there, holding other people up from finding their soulmate or whatever. Just, be you, and whoever's for you will be for you. So without further ado, guys, smoke out.